Hey, come check out a live taping of the John Keim Report. It's going to take place on Monday, November 18th at City Tap in Loudon 1 out in Ashburn, Virginia. Start time around 8 o'clock. It'll end at 9 p.m. In the show notes, you can find the Eventbrite invitation that you can RSVP to ensure that you get seats. It's free to show up. And if you can't find the invitation in the show notes, shoot me an email and I'll send you a link directly to you for you to sign up. You can find me at Bram, B-R-A-M, at empiremedia.com, A-M-P-I-R-E media.com. Bram at empiremedia.com. And we look forward to seeing you on the 18th at City Tap Loudon. Empire.
Hello and welcome to my podcast. I know it might seem like there's not much to say after yet another ugly loss, but there are still a few things we need to discuss. So I have Rich Cimini, my counterpart in New York, who covers the Jets for ESPN.com. He joined me to share his insight into not only the development of quarterback Sam Darnold in relation to Dwayne Haskins, but also in three guys who might factor into the Redskins head coaching search. And then it's time for my 5 observations. More quarterback talk. One disappointing season for a Redskins receiver, and what the hell keeps going wrong with the defense? But before I get to my conversation with Rich Cimini, just a reminder that I'll be at City Tap in Ashburn from 8 to 9 on Monday night, and Bram Weinstein's going to be there, Chef Mel's going to join me, and I am expecting a player or two, either on the phone or in person. I should say an ex-players or two, either on the phone or in person. So come on out, talk to us, ask whatever Redskins questions you want to know, and we'll try to give you as many answers as we can. It's a Therapy Thursday session on a Monday. How about that? And now, here's my conversation with Rich Cimini. All right, now I'm with my ESPN counterpart in New York, who covers the Jets, Rich Cimini. Rich has seen a lot of bad football like I have, but I think right now I'm taking the cake here, Rich. And Rich has covered the Jets for 31 years. He's got me beat there. So we combined have seen a lot of bad football. And it's been, today it's kind of brutal to cover these teams, don't you think?
Well, the Redskins played today on offense the way the Jets have been playing earlier in the year. I mean, the Jets somehow have found something going on offense. Of course, they've been playing bad teams the last 2 weeks with the Giants and Redskins, but you know, I've seen what you're going through because it's a young quarterback. The Jets went through it last year with Darnold, and to some extent, they're still going through it. Not quite as severe as Dwayne Haskins' growing pains are. But, you know, I've seen it, John. I've seen it, too.
And that's what I was going to ask you, because you did see this last year, and you saw Haskins Sunday. What did you see in comparison to what you saw? Now, Darnold was a different guy coming out, but what did you see in comparison to where Darnold was at last year?
Yeah.
Remember, this is Haskins' second start.
Yeah, I mean, he's way behind, and Sam played more in college than Dwayne Haskins did, so he had a little bit of an edge there. But, you know, to be quite honest with you, if you go back only 4 weeks ago, Sam Darnold was a mess. I mean, he was awful in the night game, the Monday night game against the Patriots. The famous, we call it the ghost game now, where he was mic'd up and said, I'm seeing ghosts. And then he played lousy the following week, so it looked like a total regression, and he's rallied himself. But, you know, Sam was just a little more polished. I think Sam can make more extend plays better than Haskins. Yeah, he showed that on Sunday, and I think even as a rookie, when things broke down, he could go off the script a little better than Haskins. Haskins doesn't move that well, and
he's
a problem.
More athletic than people give him credit for, but he's not what I would consider a mobile quarterback.
Yeah.
And I think some of that is the experience in the pocket. Even though he's a pocket passer, I think some of that awareness of when to escape and how is still something he's getting used to. And you see that with Darnold. You see him having those instincts for that, and it makes a difference.
Yeah, and I don't think that can be coached either. I think instincts, I think either have it or you don't. And Sam has always had it. Now, sometimes it gets him into trouble because he'll try to make a play when it's not there because he's relying on this improv ability, and it gets him into trouble. But sometimes it really works, and so I do think he has those instincts.
Do you think that because Gregg Williams has the reputation of sending a lot of pressure, and we talked about earlier before we got to start doing this, that they didn't blitz as much as maybe some people think, but I think in Haskins' mind that they probably blitzed more than he even realized. He almost feels like there's getting inside their head with a little bit of some maybe phantom pressure almost.
Absolutely, and then from talking to some of the Jet defensive players after the game, that's what they said. They said they wanted to show him looks where it looked like a certain play and where they had run a play earlier in the game, show him the same exact look, but then do a different play. So they were playing with his head, basically. Right. I mean, he's a guy who's just played very little football, and they were playing with his head. I think according to our next-gen stats people, they only sent extra pressure on about 7 out of 40 dropbacks, which was very un-Williams-like. But I think he did it with coverage and simulated pressure.
And that's where I think he's got to get used to. And that's where the other thing I was going to ask with Darnold, because he does have this capability. But in terms of like his ability to read coverages and do all that, where do you feel he's at, and how long has it taken him to get to this?
Yeah, I still don't think he's there yet, because he does. I mean, he made one horrible throw in the game, that interception where he just should have thrown it away. So he is prone to those, what did he just do moments. He still has that DNA in him, but I think he is better at finding his checkdowns. He's been doing that a little bit more in recent weeks instead of forcing it downfield. I think he's trying to look for his backs, and he's been thrown to his tight ends more. This was like unheard of. Two touchdowns for Jets tight ends.
When they're wide open, you kind of have to throw it
a little help from some busted coverages by Washington, but I think those are some areas where he's improved.
The other thing I wanted to have Rich on for is because he's covered guys who I think are going to be factors in the Redskins head coaching search. One guy was Todd Bowles. I think he's a guy that certainly any team with an opening next year was probably going to consider. What would you take away from your experience with Todd?
Todd is a great guy. I mean, Redskin fans know him. He was a good player for them many years ago. As solid a person as you will ever meet. A good players coach. The players respect him.
People always worry when they hear that. They think that it means they're their buddy, but I think players like guys who help them.
Yeah, because he was there. I think there's a certain amount of respect factor because he was one of them.
Right.
I think at times Todd got a little too loose and didn't run as tight a ship as he could. And I think it would be great I'm sure he'll get an interview. He's very, very close with Doug Williams. And the thing about Todd, I think that would be a tough sell to the fan base. I mean, you can't really hire a coach as much as he might be beloved among the fan. I mean, his record in New York was awful.
It was awful. And if it was running too loose, if there's a reputation running a looser ship, coming off of what's gone on here the last couple of years, I don't think that's what.
That's a tough sell. I mean, fans want a winner, and I'm not saying Todd's not a winner, but his record in New York was really bad.
What else about him as a coach? That I have heard good things about him as a person from multiple people, but as a coach, what was the positive that you took? Like, what was something that you liked that he did?
Yeah, he was really consistent. He would never change win or loss. Same guy. The players always told me that he didn't BS them. He would just give it to them straight. I think they respected that. Not a fiery, not a rah-rah guy. I think the fans will have maybe a hard time embracing him because his press conferences are so dreadfully boring. And I think fans want a little juice. And
they
Todd
need it after this year.
Yeah, Todd doesn't bring the juice. So he's as solid a football man as you're going to find. But like I said, I don't know if he brings that pizzazz factor.
Well, I got two other guys who let's go to pizzazz, one of which is Gregg Williams, who coached here. And I do believe, he has stayed in contact with Dan Snyder, so I do believe that he's going to be at least a consideration here. So now I've covered him. Redskins fans know him, but they haven't seen him in a while. So what's your experience been like with him this year?
Well, I can tell you he's doing a really good job this year. Their defense has been really hurt by him. Their best player has been basically out all year, C.J. Mosley. So today, in Sunday's game, he started 2 backup inside linebackers and a pair of third-string cornerbacks. And so he's done a fantastic job of keeping it together. Has it been perfect? No. They're great against the run. The players like him a lot because he's really aggressive. He dials up blitzes. He's got a charisma, and you were around him. And he's got a little it factor going for him. And I think he badly wants to be a head coach. And he won't admit it, but I think he was hurt last year because he did a good job in Cleveland as the interim, and they bounced him. And I think he's got something to prove.
He also can rub guys a certain way. I think there's some people that I know here who still really like him. And there are some people who he rubs the wrong way.
Yeah.
Have you heard any of that there with him?
Well, we all expected it to be like World War III between Gase and Gregg Williams. 2 really stubborn, ego-driven coaches, we thought they would clash for sure. Now, if they have, I don't know about it. We haven't seen anything, heard anything. The one thing I wonder if Gregg has a good feel for the whole team, because he's been, I wonder what's he going to do on offense. And the other concern is, I wonder if guys would tune him out after, a couple of years, a year or two. Because he comes on strong, he really comes on strong. Too strong, as we found out in New Orleans with the Bounty Gate. But I think that might get tuned out or wear thin after a year or so.
And that's the thing, because the last thing on him is he does get his guys to play with a little bit of a swagger. Have you seen that with this defense? Totally.
They play on edge. He he tells the guys, we play to the echo of the whistle. So it's borderline. Some guys.
I haven't heard that.
Yeah, some guys embrace it. Jamal Adams is having a really good year because they're letting him attack at the line of scrimmage, and he's got 6 sacks in the last 2 games or 5, and so some guys embrace it. But and his meetings, players tell me, are super intense. You cannot doze off for a second. So I just wonder about the shelf life, though. I think there's an expiration date on that.
I definitely think that. I do think that if you need an injection of something like that, that's the kind of guy you get it. Last one, he's on TV now, but Rex Ryan, and he said on TV anybody would consider a job like this.
Yeah.
What would you think?
Rex has a lot of similarities to Gregg Williams, and it's interesting because Gregg Williams' mentor is Buddy Ryan, Rex's dad. And so, I think Rex can be a good head coach. He won 4 playoff games on the road with the Jets, and I think he can be a good coach if he's learned some things. In Buffalo, he just came in there too strong, guaranteeing this and that, and it just blew up on him. And he also has a blind spot for offense. I saw it firsthand. He doesn't look at the game through 2 lenses. He just looks through it a defensive lens. So I'd worry about that. But if you're talking about getting a team to believe and getting a fan base excited, then he's the guy.
And we'll see, because I think those guys, all 3, will at least be mentioned, I'm sure, at some point. So that's why. But I have a feeling that Gregg might be more of a factor than the other 2. But that's just guessing right now.
Yeah, so I think they should all be interviewed because they all bring something different. And but if you're looking for energy, Rex would probably have the edge there.
All right, Rich. Thanks a lot for joining me, man.
You bet, John.
After this break, I'll be back with my 5 observations, including some thoughts on the quarterback position. All right, folks, now it's time for my 5 observations after another pretty miserable day here with the Redskins. Number 1, Dwayne Haskins was caught in an exchange with his offensive lineman late in the game by NBC Channel 4 cameras, asking them basically, what do I have to do to help you? If you haven't seen this, it's on their Twitter feed. Go back and look at it. It's hard to know what to make of it, but one of my takeaways is that here's a young kid who seems to care and who's getting little feedback from his line mates. I saw Morgan Moses offering something, couldn't tell what he was saying, but it didn't seem like anyone else had much to say or much interest in saying anything. Maybe they were just beaten down. It was late in the game. It was another ugly day for those guys. For Haskins, this is only his 2nd start, and therefore his enthusiasm remains high. For the linemen, they've been through the ringer this season. But with youth should come energy, and I'd like to see Haskins do more of this. He's a relatively quiet guy, doesn't have this huge presence when he walks in a room, has it because of his size, not because of his personality necessarily. And I did talk to some people who wondered about his leadership skills a while back. He can be reserved, but I'd like to see that fire. And it's going to take a lot more than fire to get this going, but I didn't like that the linemen appeared disengaged at this moment. I don't know why. I wasn't able to talk to them about a lot of this, so I don't know what was going through their minds. And I didn't see this video until after I got back from the locker room, so it was hard for me to even look or talk much to them about it. But perhaps they were just annoyed by the sacks taking place that maybe they felt shouldn't have been taking place. I don't know, but it wasn't the best look overall. Number 2, as Rich and I talked earlier in the podcast, it's not as if the Jets were sending a lot of blitzes. They weren't. When they did send an extra rusher, Haskins completed just 2 of 6 passes for 4 yards. He did have a touchdown in there. But what they were doing at times was they were doing a good job of bringing guys off the edge. So they'd show Jamal Adams one side and bring guys the other way. So it made it hard for Washington to know which way to slide the protection at times. That was a huge issue, and that led to some quick hurries. And that's why I'm surprised the Redskins didn't use more of the quick game passing in the first half. They needed to get Haskins into a rhythm, and I thought this was going to be part of the early game plan. I talked to one offensive player afterward who said he thought that was going to be the case as well. It really wasn't. Gregg Williams does a good job as a defensive coordinator of changing the coverages after the snap. He did that a few times today, and I think that's all it takes to cause a rookie passer to hesitate. That plus some of those protection looks made it a very difficult day for the guys up front and for Haskins. It's natural. Haskins just isn't at a point where he's ready to battle with a coordinator like Williams, even when that team has a weakened secondary. And I also am curious with these game plans, some of the discussions taking place between Kevin O'Connell and Bill Callahan. They definitely come at this game from a different perspective, and right now I think Callahan's wishes are winning out. So I'll be curious to see if this changes at all going forward. Number 3, the Redskins just don't have the playmakers to help Haskins out. They know this. That's going to be a major emphasis in the offseason of getting more players on offense to help. Shoot, they don't have playmakers to help a lot of quarterbacks out, let alone a rookie quarterback whom they felt would take a long time. And that's the problem with playing. That's one of the problems with playing him right now. They know this. He's in a really bad spot here. That's why when I look at his progress, it's going to be about things other than just final results. It's got to be about being how the approach you're taking, responding to adversity, leadership in how you're handling the huddle, and then how you're progressing with your reads. All that's going to be important, but the results may not always be there because the talent just isn't there to help him out. And not saying it's their fault. He's not able to help them out either, and that's the other problem. So they're all at a point where the receivers are young. They need a veteran quarterback. The quarterback is young. He needs some guys who are going to help him more at receiver. It's a very tough mix right now. So there was one point I'm watching the game. You're looking out there. It's Jeremy Sprinkle, Kelvin Harmon, Wendell Smallwood. Not a single one of them expected to be a big part of the pass game at the start of the season. Now all are out there on some key downs. Of those 3, I can see Harmon developing into something for the future, but the ceiling I don't think it's not real high, but he's a guy who can help in the future. It's also obvious that Trey Quinn, while a nice story, Mr. Irrelevant, is not necessarily I wouldn't say is it not a good fit with Haskins right now, but I think that it's been a tough spot there at that position. It's not that he's bad, it's that Haskins needs someone again who can create more separation than Quinn has been doing. And I think the Redskins internally felt that Quinn would be more productive than he's been. He's not doing as well as I think they had hoped. It's not just that they miss Jamison Crowder. They do. We saw more what Crowder could do today. But his loss would have been mitigated had the tight end group not been depleted or if Chris Thompson had been playing. And I already can hear what you're saying. Yes, all that was easy to predict that all that would have happened. Still, they need more from the slot. And so I'll be curious again to see how that is handled moving forward. They're going to keep playing Quinn. I think his ability to run routes at different spots is helpful. And I think they want to get Steven Sims a little bit more time. The issue with Sims early in the year, from my understanding, was that it was taking him time to learn the offense. Kind of an important thing to do. So let's see what happens going forward. He did play more today, but they need more. I mean, for what it's worth, on the interception that Haskins, when he was targeting Quinn, I think Haskins anticipated Quinn sliding back to his right on the play. He was trying to lead him away from the inside defender on the throw. Quinn stopped. I'm not blaming Quinn because I don't know what he was thinking on that play. But I'm just pointing out what happened, what I saw, and what I heard. It's part of the process of those two getting on the so-called same page. I do think that Quinn would have been, just like everybody else here, man, the trickle-down effect from some of these injuries, it's been huge. But I think the Jordan Reed absence, and again, easy to predict, I know, but that absence has really, it has the trickle-down effect of other guys getting either being put in spots where they need to come through, or maybe you can't do certain things to help create more openings for them. So that's been tough for them. Number 4, I really don't know what else to say about the defense, man, other than they just aren't very good. It's the coverage mishaps that keep happening that is tough to handle. There were so many breakdowns. And when it keeps happening, it's obviously not just on the players. It's up to the coaches to then change something to help. There are a few guys who bust more often than others. Fabian Rowe, Josh Norman. Seen Jimmy Moreland have a few. He's a rookie. You would expect that. Look around the league and you'll see other good defenses have these coverage breaks at times too. That's what these offenses now do best. They force defenses to communicate last second by sending motions late and changing the structure and the rules of the defense. That means you better communicate well. Listen, I've seen every defense out there when they're running some stack formation, some bunch. If you don't communicate on some of those motions and you don't have the rules down right now, and you don't have those, and I was talking to one of the Redskins defensive players after the game, he's like, this is the stuff that you get during the week. So you communicate during the week so that way when you get to Sunday, what you see on the field is exactly the situation you talked about on Wednesday or Thursday night when you're watching film together, because it's got to go beyond the meeting room. It's got to be something that happens away from the facility. And I don't know that happens enough here. There are times in the past it did, but that's when the communication begins. It's not just in the game saying it, because you've got to see it during the week so that way you're all on the same page when you see it on Sunday. We've heard for years now how they need to communicate better, and it doesn't happen. Part of it is playing young guys. It's certainly not all of it. And Norman, of course, is not young. I'm not going to blame him for everything. I think he gets blamed for a lot of things that aren't his fault, but he definitely deserves a lot of the blame too. On one play, the Jets caught the Redskins in a tough coverage, and they had the perfect play, a pass to tight end Ryan Griffin in the left corner. The play was the perfect play against that coverage. And I was going back and looking at that play. Some guys looked to be in their right spots, but clearly someone screwed up. But I do think that was a good play call. But most of the time, there were guys just breaking open because somebody botched the coverage, and that's terrible. Listen, Ryan Griffin had over 100 yards receiving today. He had 160 yards for the season coming into this game. He'd never had more than 85 yards receiving in his career, which dates back to 2013. So we're not talking Kittles here, okay? This wasn't Rob Gronkowski. This is Ryan Griffin, and the Redskins couldn't cover him because they kept breaking. That's coaching, that's personnel, and folks, God darn it, that's enough. Number 5, the Redskins have wanted to build a certain culture, and we all know that's been an issue here. But I'm talking about the locker room culture only right now. That can be separate from what's going on in the upper levels of the building and the atmosphere overall. And in 2015, with the same characters in place at the top, the Redskins locker room was a good place. Guys like Will Blackman, Will Compton, those mid-level guys were very key and instrumental in helping establish a certain culture in that locker room. Guys who were there loved it. So it can happen even in this setup. But the odd thing is they have drafted a lot of guys from big-time winning programs, Alabama, Ohio State, LSU. Heck, Moreland won at JMU. It hasn't mattered. I still like drafting guys from places that are used to winning. I do think that's important. But it also shows you how much more you have to do to create a good situation. They do have guys with good football character, but they absolutely need are more strong leaders and, of course, more playmakers. And I don't care where those guys come from. Folks, that's all I got for now. A big thank you to Rich Cimini from ESPN.com. He covers the Jets, for joining me. Felt like he gave me and you some good insight into certain coaches who might be on the Redskins' radar and what it's like covering a young quarterback or watching a young quarterback in comparison to what we were seeing with Dwayne Haskins. And as always, thank you for listening. And just a reminder, Monday night at City Tap in Ashburn from 8 to 9, I'll be there. It'll be the start of a Therapy Thursday session. I'm hoping that Chris Cooley is going to join me, whether in person or on the phone. So maybe another guest or two that you guys can listen to, and it's going to be a really good chance for you to ask some questions. So come on out and join me. And again, thank you for tuning in.
Hey, come check out a live taping of the John Keim Report. It's going to take place on Monday, November 18th at City Tap in Loudon 1 out in Ashburn, Virginia. Start time around 8 o'clock. It'll end at 9 p.m. In the show notes, you can find the Eventbrite invitation that you can RSVP to ensure that you get seats. It's free to show up. And if you can't find the invitation in the show notes, shoot me an email and I'll send you a link directly to you for you to sign up. You can find me at Bram, B-R-A-M, at ampiremedia.com, A-M-P-I-R-E media.com. Bram at ampiremedia.com. And we look forward to seeing you on the 18th at City Tap Loudon.